What's up, everybody? It's Barcelona Breakdown here again, giving you the recap of our UEFA Champions League match yesterday against Frankfurt at home on December 9th, 2025. So let's just kick things off. Personally, I was happy with the lineup, to be honest with you. Joan Garcia in goal, Balde, Gerard Martin, Kubarsi, Kounde as the back line. Then we had Pedri and Eric Garcia in the midfield. Rafinha, Fermin, and Lamine and Lewandowski as our attacking offense. Couple big calls there. Rooney played great on the weekend. He doesn't make the starting lineup. Ferran gets a hat trick. He doesn't make the starting lineup. I mean, again, personally, I do stick to this that I do prefer Lewandowski in Champions League nights. He was not good at all yesterday. He looked old. He looked slow. He was not involved in the game whatsoever. So I'm definitely open to critiquing that performance. Ferran was definitely electric when he came into the match and added a little bit more dynamic options for the team. However, we were winning at that stage. So let's just preface that. Different game at that point in time. So, right out the gate there, we did not look like ourselves. Home game, they said there's 2,000 Frankfurt fans there. I have a hard time believing that. They sounded like they were outnumbering us at certain points of the match, and we could definitely hear them through the screen and through the TV. Um, I guess we'll start with Araujo there. So, big headline comes out a couple hours before the game. Araujo goes to Israel on a retreat to find some mental peace. I don't really know what he's thinking at this point in time. Like, I'm supposed to believe he's going to come back from this hiatus and be mentally strong now. Like, the first hiccup this guy has in any match, if he ever does come back to the team, he's going to go into a full-on meltdown. One bad challenge. God forbid this guy gets sent off again. We're never going to see him again. I don't really know what to say about that. Obviously, this has been brewing for a while. This didn't just happen, and one red card and he has a meltdown and doesn't come back to practice and has to go on a religious retreat. So, I mean, I hope he clears whatever he needs to for himself, and mental health and the pressure that we put on the players is obviously ridiculously high. So I sympathize with that. But at the same time, man, like, this is your job. You are at this stage because you are able to deal with pressure, or we hope you can. You're a center back. You rely on your athleticism, like I've said in the previous podcast. You got to get better. You got to get better. You got to think with your head and think when you're making these rash decisions. Like, you can't just dive in when you're on a yellow card. Absolutely unnecessary to take that red against Chelsea in the first half. And I don't see that changing personally. He's been at the club now for 4 or 5 years, and he plays the exact same way. So clearly he's unwilling to change. And now we have a bigger problem where everyone's now aware that he's having this mental problem where he's just not able to deal with the pressure, and for whatever reason he's not himself and he's struggling, which again I sympathize for and I'm fine with. But as a fan, I don't feel confident with you already before this. So now you're going to come back and try to start in a Champions League match. I do not think so, and I do not want to see that. Anyways, hoping for the best. We'll keep you guys updated on what happens with that. But in regard to the game, a shell of ourselves basically for the entire match. The first half was terrible. We looked static. Frankfurt did what most teams are going to do against us, especially when they are away. Low block, 5 at the back. When they don't have the ball, they're defending with a 6th man almost, it felt like, across the back line. Their defensive mid would slot in and kind of play just ahead of their back 5, which made it really hard for us to penetrate their defense. Pedri was basically the only threat we had in the first half of creating anything whatsoever. We had 1 or 2 good chances. Lewandowski had an offside goal, was relatively close, but it just did not look good, and we looked heavily reliant on the midfield to create something, and it's basically just Pedri, you know, moving the ball, looking to try to get somebody in behind, but it just was not happening. They defended it well. But, obviously we had the possession, that's fine, but teams are just going to sit back, look for the counter, and, 21 minutes into the game, it happened, right? So, again, high up, basically our back line is at the halfway line. Ball gets in between Martin and Balde. Knuff sneaks in behind, extremely fast player. We were not respecting the Frankfurt's ability to counterattack us. We were not respecting their speed, and that was evident by how high up Martin was playing when we had the ball. He was basically playing like a defensive midfielder, and we're just asking to get counterattacked. And you know what? You could give the team slack about how they defend in these situations. You can always point to a mistake when we concede, but it doesn't even become about defense anymore when we're sitting at the halfway line and the other team has the ball. Like this is a track meet now. Any average player can play that ball in behind our defense, and now it's just a foot race. We have Gerard Martin, we have Kubarsi. Balde's obviously quick. Kounde's relatively quick, but I mean, we're just asking for it. There isn't a defensive blame almost when realistically all they have to do is put a ball in between the 18-yard box and the halfway line, and now it's a foot race between the offensive player and the goalie and our center backs. So this is basically what happened. They played a very nice ball in between Martin and Balde. Knuff, extremely fast, does extremely well to hold off Balde, beat him there, and finish by Garcia. But, I mean, maybe Martin could have picked that out. But you're saying now he doesn't pick out that interception and we concede. It's the margin for error is so small when we're playing like that. It's we're just asking for it. So I don't really know what we can do. If he's going to continue to play that way, this is just going to happen, especially against the better teams. Like this is just a fact. So, we'll see what happens. Pedri, clearly the best player in the first half by a long shot. And again, our kryptonite team sits back, counterattack, and we're now 1-0 down for, I don't know if it's the 5th or 6th game in a row, which is definitely not a good sign either. Start of the second half, Lopez comes out, Fermin comes out. We needed to make a change. Rashford comes in, instant impact from Rashford. Definitely could see that he was adding another offensive threat, which we desperately needed. And, that ended up changing the game. We put Rafinha through the middle. He did not have a good game. Yamal did not have a good game. I struggle to find people that perform well. I say Pedri played well. Kounde played well. The back line, played decent considering. Eric Garcia played well. But a lot of people defending Yamal, and, I don't know if it's the injury, if he's missing a little bit of his acceleration, but he for sure is taking way too many touches. Teams have learned that we have to put 2 or 3 guys around him and surround him, and he's falling into their trap because he refuses to release the ball. He's taking too many touches, and he has to learn that he's going to have to create space and create opportunities for himself aside from trying to dribble by 2 or 3 guys. Like, he's got to draw the defenders in, play the ball into the midfield, or play the ball into the striker and make a run in behind, or just try to use off the ball movement to free himself up. Because if you're going to try to go 2v1 or 3v1 every single time you get the ball, it's just not going to happen. And especially if you're nursing an injury. So he's got to look to change. He's still young, but I gave some criticism to him on X. People are jumping and attacking me because of it. We got to be honest with ourselves. If you want to call somebody the best player in the world, they got to be willing to adapt. I'm a Yamal guy, so I'm not against him by any means, but it's got to be better. And we are not going to win the Champions League or maybe La Liga if he's going to continue to play like that, because teams will adapt and he has to learn to adapt as well. So that's just my 2 cents. Getting back to Rashford there, beautiful ball in by Rashford to Kounde to get his first goal back for us. That was a massive, massive goal. Again, cross out wide, not typically our style of play, but it was much needed. A beautiful ball in. Kounde does a great job to make the run and finish. And, 1-1, start putting the pressure on. Quickly changes to 2-1, similar to the weekend, where we bounced back and we were able to score two in the blink of an eye. Kounde gets his second in the 53rd minute. Again, another short corner, and Yamal puts a very high lofted ball into Kounde. Kounde does well to get to their first. Headers it across goal into the side mesh of the net, and very happy to see Kounde get those two goals as he has been struggling. Yamal picked up a second yellow, and that was a very unnecessary challenge. Defender was going backwards in their own half. He decides to lunge in, take him down, and he gets booked, and now will miss the next match in the Champions League. So not good to see that, but maybe he does need the rest, and it's not against the strongest opponent, so we'll see what happens with that, and maybe Rooney can get some minutes there if he can keep up his form. Second half, we definitely commanded the ball a lot more possession. I believe we finished in the high 70s for the game in terms of possession. Outshot the opponent, more shots on target, and that's going to be the case against most opponents, but we have to adapt. We have to adapt. Yamin's got to adapt. Flick's got to adapt. If we're going to play this high line, this is going to be a reoccurring theme throughout the season. We're going to be down early. We might get strictly played right out of games if we concede a couple early. And, this is just a factor of us playing this way. And, we could sacrifice that if we're going to, be clicking offensively and creating and outscoring the opponents. But this was an ugly game that we easily could have drawn or lost. And after 90 minutes, we didn't have very many chances where it was a goal scoring opportunity. It was few and far between. Frankfurt did a good job, and other teams are going to be taking note of that. So something to be aware of. A good portion of the match in the second half, Rafinha was playing through the middle. He did cover a lot of ground, but was relatively ineffective. Wouldn't have mind to see Yamal go through at the 10 there. Rafinha also, I'm not opposed to doing that. He does cover a lot of ground, like I said, but it did not look good. So happy to get the win. We're going to be doing a extreme hate watch today on the Man City versus Madrid game. I think it's better if Madrid wins the game, to be honest with you, for our Champions League chances of qualifying for the top 8. But wouldn't be upset if they lost either. So that's pretty much it, guys. Honestly, I don't really have too much to say. It was an ugly game. Few and far between on the better performances from individual players there. So hopefully we bounce back over the weekend. Hopefully some players get some rest. De Jong gets benched for Garcia. That was a little bit of a controversial take there, but Eric played relatively well considering, the overall performance wasn't great. De Jong, he may need a reality check, to be honest with you. Those two benches by Flick there might be a reality check for him. And like I've said in the past, he's just been too slow on the ball, too many touches, and he's got to adapt and get rid of the ball quicker and add a little bit more to the team, because we don't need somebody who's just going to take 30 touches and basically walk the ball over to the next person. We got to be quick. We got to be able to adapt and be dynamic if we're going to play this high line through the rest of the year. We got to push the pace on offense, and we have to have these midfielders creating for us, because if these players are going to go and the opposition's going to go into these low blocks, which is going to be a frequent thing throughout the year, we have to be able to adapt, and we have to learn to stop taking so many touches. We have to move the ball. It's not anything less than that. If you're going to take 10, 12 touches every time you get the ball, that's extremely easy for the team that we're playing against to get 11 men behind the ball. And now we're stuck. Now we're looking at Pedri to create something, because they have 5 players across their back line, basically nulling out any offense we can make down the lines. And now we're looking for a ball in behind or a Hail Mary cross, which worked out for us this game. But I don't have faith in that moving forward, especially because Frankfurt is not even a strong team, especially on form right now. They've conceded the most goals, and basically anyone's been able to put more than two past them. So we really struggled, and that was concerning. So hopefully Flick can make some adjustments in the next game on the weekend, and that's basically that, boys. I wish I could have gave a little bit more of a positive performance review there, but it is what it is. We have to be honest, and I look forward to the rest of the season and this journey together.